any of the buildings downtown. Certainly, depending on where you are, it can be a nerve-wracking thing feeling the shaking. And if you're not accustomed to living in California, we know a lot of people who've moved here to San Diego and say, I've never felt an earthquake. Well, if you were not driving in your car, the chances are that you felt this one, right? So once again, we are monitoring a earthquake, 5.2 magnitude quake near the Julian area. We're showing you the map here with a bunch of the different circles, and the smaller ones being the aftershocks. Have not had an aftershock now for at least 15 minutes, however, following that 10:08 earthquake, which seemed to spark a bunch of shaking afterwards.
And so once again, monitoring as well, our sister station up in LA, and they're showing the graph that we use to measure the earthquakes. And they're showing that the earthquake, let me see, in places like Anaheim, Long Beach, and San Bernardino area. San Bernardino just slightly, but definitely in the greater LA area, Long Beach area, Anaheim, it appears that people there have felt it.
NBC7's Nicole Gomez, I mentioned, if you're just joining us, she was down at the registrar's office and had said actually a bunch of car alarms went off because of the shaking. Yeah. So powerful enough to do that. I would suspect that we will be gathering footage. I would think this was strong enough where you can get some of those store shelves, the store security cameras showing the stuff falling off shelves and things like that. But as Marianne's been mentioning, the important thing is no serious reports of damage that we've gotten.
And so also we want to remind you, we're also streaming right now live for you on our streaming channel, San Diego News. NBC San Diego News is our streaming channel. And of course, whenever we have any kind of breaking news, we break in live there. So you can get all of the news you need to know on NBC7.com, also on NBC San Diego News.
Let's hear from someone who studies earthquakes for a living. This is from Caltech.
It's most likely associated with the Elsinore Fault. That's one of our major faults of Southern California, part of the San Andreas system. It's parallel to the San Andreas, running northwest, southeast. It's a place, this area actually, I'll show my age. I can remember some previous earthquakes in this region. We've had a couple of magnitude 5s over the last few decades that would line up with that. We're also on the Elsinore Fault in this general vicinity.
Okay, that was Lucy Jones here, a preeminent earthquake expert. We always go to her when we need to know get the expertise on earthquakes. And she was saying the last earthquake of this magnitude was August 9th of last year at the Grapevine. So she's trying to explain here what different kinds of earthquakes are, the jolt and kind of like the rolling horizontal kind of movement there. But the important thing to know is that we didn't have any injuries or any kind of structural damage. And once again, we are everywhere for you on news you need to know on our streaming channel, NBC San Diego News, also on NBC7.com when you're on the go. Live pictures for you now at the epicenter of this earthquake that struck at about 10:08 this morning with a magnitude of 5.2. It's about 4 kilometers south of Julian. That's about 2.5 miles, which is exactly around the same place that an earthquake struck yesterday afternoon at 3:54 p.m., so 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 8 miles in depth, so is this one as well. So it's considered a shallow earthquake, so definitely people have felt it.
10:08 was the big one, 5.2. And then there were a series of aftershocks. Looks like the USGS is showing at least 8 aftershocks in the region following that. The last one being 10:14. So it's been a good 25 minutes or so since there's been any shaking that actually registered with the agency there. NBC7's Brooke Martell over there. Brooke, you're keeping an eye on downtown Main Street like the rest of us here What can you tell
Yeah.
us in terms of the information you've been following? I know there's not a lot of info out there, but
Right.
what do you have?
I mean, we could take a look here at the maps again, just to reiterate, 5.2 magnitude. And when we talk about the depth, 8 miles considered shallow, which I know both of you have already mentioned here. But that's why you've been able to feel a lot of the shaking. So even for us here in Kearney Mesa, I was checking in with the National Weather Service here in San Diego and seeing reports that people have been chiming in closer to the coast, also feeling the shaking from this 5.2 magnitude earthquake. I'm going to step off camera really quick because I do want to drive this radar for you just to show you, again, emphasizing how many more aftershocks there have been, even along the 78, not too far here from Ramona. We see that there actually was just a 1.1 magnitude aftershock. So it's kind of getting out of that cluster within about 2.5 to 5 miles of Julian and moving far beyond that, going west. And so that's where others are starting to feel, again, some of the aftershocks from this particular earthquake. Again, this happened at about 10:08 this morning, 5.2 magnitude with a depth of 8 miles considered shallow, which is why a lot of people are reporting that they felt that, including us here at NBC7.
Brooke, thank you. We're going to stay on the air with you at least for now. And I'm talking now to our folks in the booth. How long are we going to stay on with people, just so we have an idea out here? Okay, so we're going to stay on the air with you right now until our midday newscast, which normally gets underway at 11 o'clock. But if you're just joining us, we are showing you downtown Main Street. Julian here. We've got a gentleman with the phone up down on the sidewalk. Pretty quiet there. But I can imagine around 10:08, when this 5.2 magnitude quake hit, that it was pretty shocking for the people in this community in particular, because it's just a few miles from the Elsinore fault line, which of course is where the officials who've been monitoring the seismic activity believe this earthquake was centered. It sparked a number of aftershocks in the 2 to 3 magnitude range. When we're saying the depth of this one was 8 miles or so fairly shallow as far as earthquakes go. The shaking could be felt all over San Diego County, certainly to the west, when the more populated zones of San Diego, Scripps Ranch, Poway, downtown, Kearney Mesa, just a few of the neighborhoods where we had reporters who started feeling the shaking. We heard reports of car alarms going off at the time. NBC7 reporter Joe Little doing a separate story and hearing some news, hearing and seeing people running from a construction zone. But right now we want to bring in one of the familiar faces anytime we have an earthquake, and that being NBC.
Pat Abbott.
Yeah,
He's
Pat Abbott.
formerly San Diego State University geologist emeritus. And Pat, good morning to you, and thanks for joining us this morning. So tell us your thoughts this morning. What is it that we know scientifically?
Well, I can tell you, I was standing on the 3rd floor of my CPA's office building in Mission Valley, so I definitely felt that earthquake. And when I heard it was near Julian, that makes you immediately think about the Elsinore Fault, which is the same fault south of the border, the same fault trend that gave us that Easter earthquake there 15 years ago. So magnitude 5.
Hey, Pat, you cut out. Pat, can you hear us? Okay, can you
In the
please,
sense of you never
Pat,
know the day it's going to occur, but totally expected event. Once it's happened, you simply say, oh yeah, that's the kind of thing that could happen any day. 5.2, generally speaking, is a relatively, if I may say so, good earthquake. Good in the sense you don't usually have deaths or injuries or even serious damages. Big enough to catch everybody's attention, and we'll hope nothing fell off a shelf and hit somebody, or a tree hit someone, or any shall we say, freak kind of accident like that. But we're waiting to see what we see here in Julian and other surrounding areas.
Pat, you cut out for a few seconds there. So can you please repeat from the part about the fault line and then go from there?
Hello?
Pat, are you there? Could you please?
I'm sorry.
Hey, okay, we lost Pat Abbott. We hope to get him back so we can explain exactly what the fault line is. I suspect he was in his CPA's office doing his taxes, which is tax day tomorrow.
Yeah, no, as we reported earlier, Pat confirming that this is likely the Elsinore fault zone, which runs near Julian, other nearby communities being Escondido, Poway. The primary reason we're showing you downtown Main Street, because this would be the community closest. We have one of our crews heading to Alpine right now, and we have a number of reporters out and about following this story. We did have someone who was in the car who didn't feel it at all. So there's a good chance that if you were driving, you actually did not feel this earthquake. But if you were in an office building, I've already heard from my daughter who was in school, if you were out and about standing on the city streets, strong likelihood that you felt this 5.2 quake at 10:08 this morning. Again, no reports of any major, even significant damage at this point. But this is a big enough earthquake where we're, of course, coming on the air with you to talk about it. And a big enough earthquake that you'll be able to kind of circle it on the calendar for years to come. Pat Abbott referencing that Easter earthquake, which I remember 15 years ago. So it kind of shows you just how strong this was. He referred to it as a good earthquake in shaking. You can tell stories about it, but it's not strong enough, likely to cause much damage. He did say that there is the possibility with something this size of items falling off store shelves and things like that. And, he was expanding on that, saying hopefully no one got hit by anything like that. Certainly we haven't had any reports of that, but a pretty good shaker to say the least.
It is. And pardon me, let me clear my throat for just a second. So when kids are in school, elementary school, we've got a video now of an elementary school in Mira Mesa. And Daniel, can you repeat again? Okay, I didn't get it. One more time. Salk Elementary in Mira Mesa, and they're practicing what they are supposed to do, which is to drop, cover, and hold on. So this is video, once again, of Salk Elementary School in Mira Mesa, where they are doing what they're exactly supposed to do during an earthquake of this kind, which is why they are practicing it. But this is not a drill in this case. And so the kids will know the importance of what it is when the next time that they practice this emergency movement.
We are hearing from San Diego State University. They sent out an alert saying that their campus remains open, events ongoing. They are doing an assessment, but at least on that campus, no damage or injuries reported at this time. SDSU and SDSU Imperial Valley remaining open. Classes are not being canceled. And I took a geology class at San Diego State University back in the day. It may have been with Pat Abbott, who we just heard from, by the way, just a fascinating class. And so for people who aren't familiar with earthquakes and haven't felt them before, this may have been the first one. California, of course, known for earthquakes. And San Diego doesn't have any major faults. I know we have the Rose Canyon fault, which is closer to the water. This being the Elsinore fault, which is closer to Julian, which is where this earthquake centered from. A number of aftershocks afterwards. You may or may not have felt the aftershocks. Those were in the 2 to 3 magnitude range, but a 5.2 magnitude quake at 10:08 this morning. We'll have everyone asking the question for the rest of the day with their friends and family members. Did you feel it?
Well, we always seem to be saying, that's the question we always say, but this is really no joke. So let's take a look at some video that we have from the DMV, and usually that's pretty crowded. This morning doesn't look to be so much crowded, but there's video there that you will see a little bit of shaking. Is that, it looks to be.
The only thing I'm seeing is.
I know, I think, I was told that we were going to be seeing a little bit of shaking. Well, they look, so maybe that, no, right there.
Well, the earthquake was, 5 to 10 seconds. So if the, here, maybe we'll circle back. Okay, you're seeing the reflection and some of the lights there in the back.
Lights, swaying there in the background.
I mean, if you were taking one of the eye exams there on A, B, or C, that might have made it a little difficult for you in the middle of this quake, right? Can I get a do-over on that one? All right, back to downtown Main Street, downtown Julian, which is, again, the community closest to where this earthquake was centered, of a 5.2 magnitude quake, if you're just joining us at 10:08 here on NBC7. We are on the air with you a little bit early because of this quake. It's 10:50 right now. We have our regularly scheduled newscast at 11 o'clock. So we're going to stay on with you right up and through our midday newscast, as we have a number of crews out and about gathering reaction, and at the same time trying to check in with some of our city and county leaders, the Emergency Operations Center, which is based out of Kearney Mesa, trying to feel it out if this quake actually did any damage, because fortunately we have not heard any reports of any sort of certainly significant, but even moderate damage at this point from the 5.2 magnitude quake.
That's very true. And so I wonder if anybody eating apple pie in one of the bakeries there in Julian felt a little bit of a jolt. But now we're seeing more people out there on the sidewalk, and but they look to be casually walking there. It looks to be a nice day in Julian. And we are on the air this morning telling you about this earthquake. It's a pretty good jolt that you probably may have felt if you were here in San Diego County, or even if you were in Orange County and northern LA County, that they felt it all the way up there. But fortunately, there are no reports that we are getting into our newsroom yet of any kind of injuries or any kind of big structural damages. Perhaps some people, their car alarms went off, a little bit of a jolt, and then maybe some picture frames might have fallen off the fireplace. But the last earthquake of this size was in the Grapevine area. That was in August 9th of last year. And Sunday afternoon, Julian, this was the site of an earthquake at 354. It's about 3 miles south of Julian. And they had a depth of about 8 miles. And about 0 to 40 miles in depth is what's considered to be a shallow earthquake, which means that it's likely that you felt it. But that's, really, this is like one that really caught our attention. Usually it's like a 3.0 or maybe a 4.0, but this one, I think everybody in the newsroom, their eyes got really big, and whatever they were doing, they put down and stood up.
I would say that anytime you feel an earthquake, it's humbling. And when you feel one where everybody feels it and you look around, it just sort of puts things in perspective for people. Circling back to NBC7 meteorologist Brooke Martell, who's been monitoring some of the various sites out there, and you're showing us all those circles that represent the seismic activity.
That's right, Stephen and Marianne. So again, taking a look at the epicenter, this was a 5.2 magnitude earthquake, happened at 10:08 this morning, a depth of 8 miles, which you've been talking about. That's fairly shallow, but now you can see the other neighboring red dots here indicating those aftershocks. So we've had several. And just taking a closer look, outside of kind of that cluster where we're seeing most of those aftershocks, where the epicenter is or was near Julian, you can see just west of that towards Ramona, another one, magnitude 1.1. So it's possible someone could have felt maybe a little bit of shaking from that. But just breaking down the details once again, and this coming from National Weather Service, oftentimes when we talk about these earthquakes that happen, the tsunami threat, there is not one. There's no tsunami threat here as of right now. That's coming directly from National Weather Service. So of course, we're keeping you updated on all of that. But just a reminder, 5.2 magnitude earthquake happened right around Julian at 10:08 this morning. And again, seeing several of those aftershocks as a result of that original earthquake. Stephen and Marianne?
Okay, thanks very much, Brooke. And so we are interrupting our regular programming for you to bring you this breaking news of an earthquake that happened at about 10:08 this morning. It was over 5.0, it was a 5.2. It was centered in Julian, about 4 kilometers, that's about 2.48 miles south of Julian, which is nearly the same location as the one yesterday afternoon in Julian, and the depth the same, 8 miles. And so definitely people felt it in Julian, felt it definitely in San Diego. They saw their lights shake, and they saw their, perhaps their doors slam, maybe not that hard, but close, and things are swaying around, and no reports of any injuries or any kind of damage. And usually we've got some video that we saw earlier that we showed you of Chula Vista DMV, where people didn't look to be too startled, but they knew something was going on. Elementary school, Salk Elementary School in Mira Mesa, we saw the children there going and practicing the drop, cover, and hold on. But in this case, it wasn't a drill, it was for real. So I think the next time their teachers ask them to do this drill, they'll know exactly the reason why.
They'll listen up. It was 10:08 when the big one, 5.2 quake, hit. It set off a series of aftershocks in the 2 to 3 magnitude range. Those you may or may not have felt. I will tell you that if you're just joining us on the air, Marianne and myself, we were in the newsroom, separated one desk between us, and we looked around.
Stood up, and I stood up, and we looked at each other. Like,
is that what we think it is?
And you did react, and you said, yes, that was a good one.
Well, we had people that all throughout the newsroom had the alerts that went off on their phone. So we were actually notified just seconds before the earthquake hit, with the sound of the alarms going off, which is a good tool for people to have on their phones.
Yeah, and it definitely is. And I remember when we had the Northridge earthquake, and I was down here in San Diego, but I felt it. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was just like the ground was it was a rolling kind of earthquake. And I knew, having grown up in Southern California, that was a bad one. This is in no way a comparison by any means. This one, we are not getting any reports yet of any kind of injuries or any kind of, or any kind of structural damage, perhaps something falling off the shelf. And then that's the extent of it. That's no big deal, right? So kids are prepared in elementary schools and in other kinds of schools. And then we see, fire. There's Salk Elementary in Mira Mesa. And
so usually we talked about this moments ago, that we see video like this during the Great California Shakeout or the drills. This is video in from Chula Vista Elementary School, where someone had the wherewithal to bring out their camera.
This is Salk Elementary, in Mira Mesa.
And shoot the kids. At this point, I'm guessing that the earthquake had hit, because there's sort of a lag time, right? Unless you're Johnny on the spot, able to get under that desk in 1 or 2 seconds. But the kids down there just hanging out, staying safe, strong desks.
Yeah, that's for sure.
We'd love to hear from you also, by the way. If you have a great video at home, send it into our newsroom. You go to NBC7.com and you can see an immediate way to check in with us and share your video through it. I see at NBCSanDiego.com, I believe, is also an email that you can send that to. I see at NBCSanDiego.com. Live images here from one of our crews heading out to the Ramona San Diego Country Estates area. I believe, is this the Travis's crew? Okay, this is actually en route to Alpine as well. We have crews out all over the place gathering information in reaction to what was certainly a memorable morning across San Diego, with this 5.2 magnitude quake at 10:08 this morning. NBC7 meteorologist Brooke Martell told us moments ago that the National Weather Service said that there is no worries about a tsunami associated with this. We know that that is one of the things that geologists can be concerned about following a quake, is what it does to the ocean and to the shelves out there. I will say that as we talk about this fault line, this is the Elsinore fault zone. A lot of people who get really deep into the geological terminology know that we have a number of smaller faults running through San Diego, and one of them, that's the Rose Canyon fault. That's the one closer to the ocean that sometimes is brought up in terms of earthquakes. That's not what caused this one, according to geologist Pat Abbott, who said it is the Elsinore fault zone, which runs out there near Ramona, near Julian, and you likely felt it strong in Poway and Escondido as well.
And this is also a really good reminder. I know that, we've had these power outages lately, and it's really good reminder to really get your emergency supplies in place. I know that I made sure that I had batteries, and I have those convenient lanterns that you can get at, your local hardware store or even Amazon online. And to have a couple of those, they take deep batteries, and it's good to make a checklist.
We're going to do a quick reset here for you and start with NBC7 News Midday right now.
NBC7 News Midday starts with breaking news.
We've been on the air with you now for about 30 minutes or so following this 5.2 magnitude quake. Good morning. I'm Stephen Luke.
And I'm Marianne Kushi, and we continue with our breaking news right now, breaking news coverage out of the East County, where a 5.2 magnitude earthquake hit Julian less than an hour ago, and exactly at about 10:08 this morning.
The USGS confirming it was in fact a 5.2 quake, confirming that there were a number of aftershocks along the way. We are working to learn if there was any sort of damage in any of the communities where people felt this. The primary community being Julian, and we're seeing that very famous camera view downtown Julian Main Street there. A number of pie shops and antique shops lining the sidewalks there. It's been pretty quiet as we've been checking in on this camera view, with not too many people out and about on a Monday. But we can only imagine that there was some strong reaction in this community to this quake, being that it was so close to the epicenter. We know that it was felt all around San Diego County, from Pine Valley to Escondido to Chula Vista.
And so as far as what you're looking at right now, as Stephen just mentioned, the magnitude 5.2 earthquake, and the last aftershock was felt at about 10:14 this morning. There were 6 aftershocks